and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. And today I am finally getting around to reviewing Rock Believer, which is the 19th studio album by, of course, the legendary German hard rock / heavy metal band Scorpions. And yes, it's the 19th studio album, which I don't think that counts Come Black from 2011, which was basically half re-recordings, half cover songs. So I don't think that counts in the counting of 19 studio albums. But either way, it is a brand new album, which of course follows 2015's Return to Forever. So without further ado, again, it was released this past, at least last week's Friday. Again, February 25th, through, of course, whether it be Vertigo Berlin or just Vertigo Records, Universal or Spine Farm, again, all partly there. So, let me just get into my overall thoughts on Rock Believer from Scorpions. Okay, so before I really get to any of my overall thoughts on Rock Believer, again, the 19th studio album from Scorpions, you know what I have to do. I have to do a track listing rundown so I can tell you folks what are the songs are on this album, how many songs are on this album, and what's the time length for this album. And since we have at least for the original album in itself, 11 songs, it all clocks in at the length of 44 minutes and 31 seconds. So these 11 songs are, which of course, as you see, I actually have the 2-disc deluxe copy, which the second disc adds like 5 bonus tracks. So at some point I will count the bonus tracks too. But right now I'm just focusing on these 11 songs, which again are beginning with Gas in the Tank, Roots in My Boots, Knock 'Em Dead, the title track, Shining of Your Soul, Seventh Sun, Hot and Cold, When I Lay My Bones to Rest, Peacemaker, which has no relations to the comic book TV series that James Gunn directed, which stars former, I guess, or still professional wrestler John Cena. We also then come next with Call of the Wild, then of course into When You Know Where You Come From. So that's at least is your original 11 songs. Now, as for the bonus tracks, which again, depending on which copy you get, whether it be the Japanese copy or, of course, the regular European Digipack 2-disc copy. The second disc, of course, features 5 bonus tracks. However, with the Japanese copy, there's at least 6 additional bonus tracks. So right now, I'm just going to be focusing on the bonus tracks for at least mostly the US and European limited edition deluxe copy, which the 5 songs on, disc 2, which are Shoot For Your Heart, When Tomorrow Comes, Unleash the Beast, which is not a Saxon cover, Crossing Borders, and then finally ending with a acoustic version of When You Know Where You Come From. So, and apparently at the length of at least of the second disc, this is around 19 minutes long, I guess. However, if you combine the length of these 2 discs together, it at least all clocks in around 63 minutes and at least 56 seconds. So, there it is. So, Rock Believer. I gotta say, I really enjoy Rock Believer from beginning to end. Even I dig the fucking second disc, which is most of the bonus tracks. I'm not one to really care for a lot of the bonus tracks that Scorpions had for the previous 2 albums, being, of course, Sting in the Tail and Return to Forever. Besides maybe a couple or so that I really dig from the Return to Forever album. But I gotta say, of course, I've seen some lukewarm opinions about at least the bonus tracks for Rock Believer here. But I gotta say, immediately, I think I really like the bonus track for this sound better than any of the other bonus track for the past couple of albums. Actually, at times, I think they're even at times slightly better than some of the ones that were picked for Rock Believer here. But really, I can't find a song on this album that is to be, any bad to begin with. Nothing makes me want to really hit the skip button, which is, I think, to me, was a good sign for me that I was going to come back to this album more often than any of the other ones prior to this one. The one thing I can definitely say is that when you hear Rudolph and Klaus say that they're going to return to the harder and heavier sound of albums like, for example, let's say Love Drive, Animal Magnetism, Blackout, even a bit, Love at First Sting, I have to say, I think they kind of meant their word, because this album is probably the heaviest or the hardest sounding rock album from Scorpions that they have released in a long time. It's definitely a heavier record than Singing the Tale. It's definitely way more stronger than Return to Forever, which wasn't that fucking easy to begin with. But it's definitely a return to it. It relies less on more radio staple-like songs, but more on just trying to release more straightforward, razor-sharp, hard, and heavy riffs. And it really is the most classic sound. I mean, whether you think it's that they tried a little too hard is subjective, but I think they definitely came with at least an album that at least packs at least a bit of a punch that hasn't really, I don't think they packed in a long time. I heard a lot of people say this is their best since Blackout. They certainly wanted to return to a style and sound of like Blackout, and that's definitely heard in songs, for example, like Gas in the Tank, which reminds me a little bit of the riff to like Can't Live Without You, off of Blackout. And of course you got Roots in My Boots, which kind of tries to kind of really recapture the sort of really rockin' and edge of like the song Blackout. The title track kind of tries to go back to a feel like No One Like You, but it's definitely more of a different approach, but it still has those twin guitar duels that you expect from a band like Scorpions. It still adds that you would hear in a song like No One Like You, but it's still not nearly as, let's say, as great as like No One Like You. So I guess you can say it's probably my least favorite songs off the album, but still it's not a one that I feel like I feel like skipping. Seventh Son is probably the closest to one of the really more heavier songs off this one, and this one really tries to go and recaptures a little bit of the feel of like China White off of Blackout. So they're definitely really trying to go back to at least a little bit of the feel of Blackout in a way to where I think their goal was probably to make Blackout number 2. So that's probably why many people have said this might be the best since Blackout, because they literally wanted to make an album that was probably seen as a follow-up to Blackout. That was probably the point of this album. And I think they in a way, kind of achieved that. However, when you got other songs, for example, let's say like Shining of Your Soul, even let's say maybe Peacemaker or Call of the Wild, I would say these songs are, even like when it comes to the bonus tracks, like for example, When Tomorrow Comes and Unleash the Beast, and these songs are a little bit different. These don't really sound like Blackout, but they sound like they might have taken some inspiration from past couple of albums, even maybe trying some different ideas. For example, Shining of Your Soul sounds like something that could have easily been off of, let's say, an album like Taken by Force, for an example, or even Love Drive, like a cross between those two, because it definitely has that late 70s period, and it's got a really sort of great sort of twin guitarist duel on this one. It's definitely is one of my other really favorite songs off the sound. This one doesn't sound like it would belong on an album like Blackout, but more so like an album like, for example, a Love Drive or a Taken by Force, an example. If you had this song along with Crazy, which was Crazy Ride, these two would have fit right along with the late 70s albums, in my opinion. They definitely go for that sound a bit, and I think they did a good job pulling it off. As other songs, for example, I think Hot and Cold is another heavier rocker on here. I guess in a way this could have fit on an album like Blackout as well. So it kind of goes for that. And it's definitely another good strong cut off this one, in my opinion. When I Lay My Bones to Rest and Peacemaker are more faster, more upbeat songs, but they're not nearly out. It's like, again, they're trying to go back to again and feel like songs like, for example, Blackout or Another Piece of Meat, or even Don't Make No Promises, but they still have more of a modern edge to them. Again, just to kind of you can create songs like that, but keep up a modern edge to them. So I can tell what they're trying to go for. Then, of course, you got the very last song, which is When You Know Where You Come From, which is the only ballad really on the entire album, and it's a very well put together one. This one really does sound like one of the better ballads that they have released in a long time. This really would have fit on an album like Blackout for sure, but it definitely goes for more something, for an example, maybe like Animal Magnetism or a bit. You know, it's a more, and it's, again, it builds up. Of course, you get two versions of it across both discs. I really also like the acoustic version of it. It's actually really a really fine ballad. They did a good job with it. Of course, it builds into being more of a, again, more rocker at times a bit. They more electrified. Again, that's what was great about Scorpions and their ballads. They were able to really do that and pull off really well put together ballads until they started really get infected by the whole MTV shit. And that really kind of, I think, ruined a little bit of the way they wrote their ballads. So it was really nice to kind of really see them return to this in a way. So it was really nice. I would say the song Knock 'Em Dead is another good rocker. This one begins in a way that I would expect off of like Animal Magnetism until it goes into a riff that sounds a lot like Don't Believe Her off of Crazy World, but yet without the really slick production. So there we go. Again, but as far as the bonus tracks, When Tomorrow Comes probably comes across as probably the absolute heaviest song they probably released, maybe. Though it's different at times than, let's say, He's a Woman, She's a Man. But they're trying to go back for at least another heavy, almost slightly thrashy kind of song in a way. So there's a bit of it, like, and of course you got the layered vocals from Klaus Mean, who is all over this song. That's where it really gives off a lot of that late, early sort of Scorpion sound on this one. So it's another not nice sort of at least return. Unleash the Beast is kind of a heavier song too, and I dig it. Crossing Borders is more like your typical sort of traditional old school Scorpion song with a bit of a bluesy riff to there. Would have been not too far out of place on an album like Animal Magnetism or, let's say, Love Drive. So there we go. Overall, there's really nothing bad on here. There's a lot of, I would say this is definitely the more straightforward Scorpions album in a long time. So I definitely really dig this one from beginning to end. So I'm just going to move on. So there it is, folks. There's my overall thoughts on Rock Believer from Scorpions. And my rating is a 9.55 out of 10. I think it's definitely a very good album from beginning to end. I really dig it way more than any of the stuff they released in a while. I know some will think that the bar's been set very low when it comes to Scorpions, but personally for me, I really think this is a really good album from beginning to end. I've given it so many listens, which is unusual because, again, I wasn't too thrilled with some of the past couple of Scorpions albums to begin with. I mean, they were all right, but nothing really there that just made me, that grabbed my attention to where I feel like I need to come back for repeated listens, Nothing I felt like was completely mandatory. But again, this is all subjective. But I think this is a really good album from beginning to end. I like what I hear on this album. I think it's a very solid one. Again, my highlights for this one are Ghost of songs like Seven Suns, Shining of Your Soul, Hot and Cold, Gas in the Tank, Call of the Wild, When You Know Where You Come From, and Knock 'Em Dead. To me, those are probably, my absolute personal favorites off of this one, at least across the first disc. The bonus tracks on disc 2, I think are fine. They're good songs. As far as favorites, I think I like them all equally. So I can't really pick a pure favorite. Maybe Unleash the Beast or Crossing Borders, or at least maybe even When Tomorrow Comes. So there you go. There's your personal favorite songs I can give you off of the second disc. So there it is. Again, this album has been out since February 25th, and I know you've all probably have listened to this album already. If you have any thoughts, whether they be positive or negative, you can leave them in the comments section below. But if you haven't heard it, I think it's a solid enough album. It's probably not the first. If you never heard Scorpions, it probably won't be the first sound you should be checking out. But if you at least haven't kept up with a lot of the Scorpions in a long time, I think it's definitely worth at least a listen and see if you can just give it a shot. That's all I can say. Hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrasher saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.